wide variety of effects. Yo, what's going on? It's Someone That's No One, and welcome back to today's report. Today's report is coming from her nibs off Irwin, though this specific experience being reported is of her friend. When this happened, 2005, the drug used Zopiclone at a dose of 15 milligrams. The route of administration was through pills, gender, male and female, and weight 150 pounds for the male and 120 pounds for the female. So this is somewhat more of a summary by her nibs and her experience of taking care of her friend who happened to take a strong Zopiclone dose. And this report is also interesting because some of the information that was believed to be true at the time has now actually changed, and we'll get into that at the end with the summary. So this is an interesting substance that stands out from most of the things that we have done, and I'm sure you guys are going to like it. And without further ado, let's dive right into it. Apologies for the length. Blame proofs and editors more interested in word count than anything else. There is something resembling a summary near the end. I've taken Imovane, aka Zopiclone, off and on for about 10 years. I think it's great stuff, and almost every doctor and pharmacist I've talked to about it agrees. Much lower addiction/tolerance building risk than benzodiazepines, can be used long-term, etc. I, a 120-pound female, usually take 7.5 milligrams to 15 milligrams most nights. No knockout effect, but a great and happy relaxation. I would not want to do anything requiring much by way of motor skills, though am only slightly visibly affected by it. I can go to sleep whenever I please after I take it, and get nothing by way of morning hangover. There is a bit of a bitter taste in one's mouth from it, not notably objectionable, and it has on occasion made me extremely hungry. And I am every now and then sort of privately humiliated because I will go out and drink too much, and probably come home and take, probably too much of it. Come morning, I have had some very blank periods from it. Short-term memory loss is listed as a side effect. Cross it with a belt of something else, wake up, and try to reconstruct the night before. Thus, making it useful to caution, do not try this stuff when drunk, yet not in bed. Be safe and alone or with your other half. Blank periods I've had and heard of other people having from even low doses after just a few pints. It's scary to think about, despite how calm and relatively happy it makes me. Be very cautious about recreational use. Right now, I'm sitting here furious because I gave a pill and a half to a girl I peripherally know, while saying, lock the door, unplug the phone, find a book, and get in bed. Then take it. And she went off and had other people over, iffy ones, and, oh dear, I should have realized she was too far gone on other stuff for it. That said, for the last few hours, I've been checking on a 150-pound male, a friend whose sleeping pill supply I exhausted when I last visited. Knowing I'd reimburse him ASAP in case his insomnia attacked, he took at least 2, possibly 1 more, without waiting for me to explain much of anything about them. Damn it. That bit of recklessness, courtesy, cocaine/crack, and alcohol, none in really reckless amounts, sipping low alcohol cocktails, etc., but I find that combining almost any other drug with Imovane, especially alcohol, makes for a dodgy combination. He spent a period being pretty happy, then a period in bed extremely contented. An understatement. He is depressive, and his life is over the top stressful right now. I don't think I've ever seen him so at peace with the world, which was all nice and so on until he fell completely asleep. Cannot wake him asleep. So I looked after him best I could. First aid courses can make one a bit too quick to do things like check people's reaction to light and other bits of well-meant pestering. He has no memory of anything that happened after he first got sleepy. I've seen people take a half of a 7.5 milligram pill and hardly notice it, and people who ditto that almost have to be carried to bed. This one was so happy and not in any manic or over-the-top fashion, which was fine until he passed out into a cannot-be-waken-up state. 2 of his close, deeply caring, sensitive friends. Oh, he's been like that before. Just let him sleep it off. He'll be fine. Jerks. Beg pardon. He and I are, well, more sort of grown-ups, and too aware that what's okay one night might be a coma another time. Not a good end to the evening. While he was awake, we had a huggy-kissy period, and I felt like pulling away, knowing he was in no shape to want/not want much of anything. Not quite the state to be in. Even after 10 years of on and off use, I can still get a blackout from one beer and one 7.5 milligram ibogaine. It's a good thing I don't drive, never learned, and I don't ever want to imagine what would happen with a young person's parent messed up on it. It's not that much of a popular drug. Best I can tell, in Canada, it's not cheap. 60 for 77 Canadian dollars. But with the relatively new generic brand, 44 Canadian dollars, but still not covered on the provincial drug scheme, which means that people of limited means never end up getting it. Oh, poor? Well, stick with benzodiazepines. Addiction potential? Pardon. Look, old school Pam is great. I've had a few people come try it and come back to me and say, "Can I have another one?" I slept beautifully and didn't even think about smashing my alarm clock in the morning. A few people shrugged, not impressed, not made upset either. I don't think I know of many other drugs that have such a wide variety of effects on people. Apart from the great and what was that supposed to do folk, there's the small number who got far too wrecked combining it with something else, which is a pity for something relatively benign and so useful, and so nice for the insomniac. Get a whiff of pleasant relaxation and go to sleep normally, not knocked off your feet. Attempt at executive summary. Ibogaine is a great sleep aid. Over the 10-odd years, I've used it for extended periods here and there. I've never wanted to up the dosage. My experience with myself and other people is that the worst possible side effects are limited to going to bed or being too contented to want to go to bed, unless combined with other substances. Consult your psychopharmacologist if your other substances come in amber bottles from someone in a white coat. Illicit stuff seems extremely dodgy. There seems to be a lack of ibogaine addicts. There isn't much info to go on. Booze plus ibogaine equal blackouts, sometimes in surprisingly small quantities. Don't take it or give it to somebody else, unless they're in a safe place. Watch them, especially with regards to intake of other drugs, alcohol, or moods that would make anything a disaster. Last dance. I had a hard time with whether or not publicizing a drug, especially one I think is only just new to the US and coming with a heavy ad campaign, is something akin to a date rape Rohypnol substitute. Then considered all the men in my life and realized that for any one violent addle-padded jerk who might see this and get dreadful ideas, there are infinitely more who put the info to good use. So Zopiclone, pretty new step compared to most things we covered so far, and I'm guessing a lot of you initially didn't know what this drug does or what it's used for. Zopiclone is used to help those with severe insomnia, which means it's physically and cognitively sedative, or it's a heavy sleep aid for short. It's comparable to a more well-known substance, zolpidem or Ambien. It's a hypnotic drug, so when you end up taking strong doses of it, it's somewhat comparable to a high dose of benzos, as effects like amnesia and judgment loss occur. But also with Zopiclone, it's possible to see hallucinations off of it. And I imagine most of it's in a slurred tone, but there are reports of hallucinations being somewhat deliriant-like. And looking at her NIBS report here, I do have to compliment on the cautionary advice given about not combining this with other substances, especially other depressants. But noting that this was in 2005, published 2006, I imagine at the time Zopiclone was thought to be a safer alternative to benzos, but the research today actually suggests the opposite, that it may actually be more addictive than benzos, that it isn't safe to take it over a long period of time, and there can be some really scary withdrawal effects a user can experience. For our comparisons, our first lorazepam report, The Worst Evening by Bent Razor, is somewhat relatable in that both reports did use it for intended sleep, though I imagine if our friend here ended in Bent Razor's case, then they probably would have went through similar emotions. Then the other report we can compare this to is Xanax and Mental Illness by Evan, as with the alprazolam, it did ended up knocking Evan out and putting him to sleep for 5 hours. And with that, there's really not too much other to cover here. This is another depressive drug with some potentially unique effects, but in its nature, it can be pretty dangerous. So if you want me to cover more Zopiclone or Ambien or something like that, or any substance, let me know below. If you haven't subscribed to the channel already, subscribe, like the video if you haven't, comment, follow the socials. It's been someone that's no one, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace out.